welcome to Nice Bossy with Emma Siebold. Hello, this is Emma. Welcome to episode 5 of Nice Bossy. I am very much looking forward to this episode. We are going to be talking about the life, self, work, motherhood juggle. Now, this is a question I get asked all the time. How do you juggle it all? How do you do it all? How do you manage? So I'm going to try to dispel some of the myths about doing it all and having it all. And I'm going to talk about how I do it all or give the perception that I do it all. So the first thing I'll say is I don't think I would call it a juggle so much as I would call it a compromise. So I want to do all of the things in my life. I'm already a mom, so that is what it is. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a keeper of the house, I am a businesswoman, I'm a mentor and coach for the people I work with. I am a whole human being, so I have my own needs, my own personal needs for well-being. And some of those are, eating well, sleeping well, a bit of time for me to read, a time for me to learn and study, a time for meditation, time for movement. So there's a lot for me to try and fit into a day, especially with 2 small children. Anybody who has 2 small children knows that it's a lot of work and it is absolutely nonstop, unending. There's never really a lull in the work of motherhood. I have a 9.5-year-old boy and a very spirited 6-year-old girl, and we've talked about her on this podcast. It's a lot of work just getting them out the door every day for school. I'm very lucky that they are school aged now. Having children at home with you or having children at daycare, I found that much harder. Now that they're both at school, I've got the rhythm and routine of knowing that they leave at 8:30 and they get back at 6:30. No, I wish. No, I don't wish. I love my time in the evenings. They get back at 3:30. So I know that I have between 8:30 and 3:30 each day, Monday to Friday, to really focus on work. It was even harder. This idea of the juggle was even harder when they were smaller because I had less structure and less routine and had my daughter at home sometimes. So I definitely find the school age a lot easier. So there's a whole host of other problems that come, or challenges, things to juggle when you have very, very small children. I'm going to talk about sort of my journey to here. So the very short answer to, it's my little puppy dog who wants to be let in the room. So let's let her in. Come on in, Daisy. So this is real. this is real time podcasting. So the way when I answer that question, how do I juggle it all? The answer for me is really simple. It's, as I said before, it's a compromise. And the compromise for me looks a little bit like this. I strive to be a really good mum. That is absolutely number one, the most important thing for me. I'm a pretty good wife. I'm probably not as good a wife as I am a mum, but that's sort of the joke version when I tell it actually is I'm a good mum, I'm an average wife, I'm a terrible housekeeper, and I'm a good businesswoman. But the truth is I try to be good at all of those things. So try and be a really good mum, try and be really good at my job, but also set the expectations of my team that really good for me means that I work from 9:30 till 3:30. I'm fully available during those times. And I really set an example about what I think, this whole idea of balance looks like. And I'll talk about that more. And I try to be good to myself because I know from being a mum now for 9.5 years, I know that if I don't fill up my own cup, I am no good to anybody. So self-care or self-fulfillment is really, really important to me. And I'll talk about what that looks like shortly too. And then finally, being a good wife, and a good friend, good wife and a good friend and a good daughter. My dad lives in Mullumbimby, so I'm very, very lucky that I get to see him all the time. I want to be a good daughter. I want to be a good wife. I want to support my husband. He and I work in the business together. So we're very, very fortunate that we get along. That's another question I get asked all the time. How do you manage working with your husband? We actually get along really well and we work really well together. We co-parent 100%. So we are 50-50. I'm very, very fortunate. And this makes my personal juggle a whole lot easier, is that I have a husband who's all in with me. So we co-parent 50-50. So we're both doing school lunches. We're both doing school pickups. We're both doing care on school holidays. We're both doing home readers. So all of that stuff is really shared. We're both taking kids to school activities. And then the housework is also shared. We're both tidying and cleaning. Another one of my little, I guess, ways that I do manage to juggle is that I have a cleaner, and more recently I have a gorgeous fairy princess who comes in and helps me fold the laundry as well. So for me, that juggle might sound like I do a lot, and absolutely I do, but I also have a lot of help. So that's the compromise. Yes, I would love to be doing it all, but honestly, I'm not doing it all. I have help. I have a husband, as I said, a husband who's 50-50. He is in it with me. What's really beautiful about working together and being all in, from a house perspective, keep running the household and looking after children perspective, is that we know exactly what each other has on at any given moment on any given day. So there's sort of this opportunity for us to support each other. So I get to do more of the work when he really has to focus on work, and vice versa. Or if he's away, I know how to pick up the slack for him. So we have this really nice sense of our goals are completely aligned, and especially both working in the business. If I've got an important meeting and he's got an important meeting, we have to decide whose is more important, and we get to do that together, rather than if we had different jobs, we're always going to think that our stuff's more important. So I'm very fortunate in that sense. I'm very, very lucky. The juggle for me is made so much easier by having, this wonderful, amazing, supportive business partner and husband being the same person. So that's one of the things that makes it easier for me. Now, I touched before on all the help that I have. I have a cleaner who comes in once a week, and I also have, more recently, Jordine, my beautiful fairy, who comes in and helps me fold the laundry and do other things at home. Because I've been finding lately with the podcast, with Bar Body, with the renovations that we're doing at home, trying to be the person that I want to be in my business and my life, I need that extra help. And I'm very fortunate to be in a position to be able to pay for that. So I'm not under any illusion that this is a very privileged position that I'm in at the moment. And I sort of weigh it up and go, well, firstly, I'm helping the people out who, need the work and need the money. So my cleaner, she's one of them. I feel good about supporting her to have an income. And I also know that for me, that time is better spent either with my children or my business, or looking after myself. So the juggle for me it really is a compromise, but I have to keep framing it so everybody understands that I'm particularly lucky. My advice to you having to juggle is you have to decide what are the most important things to you. Prioritize those. And if you want to make categories in your life and say, I want to be very good at this, I want to be good at this, I want to be average or okay at this, and I'm going to let this thing go, that's how you have to prioritize, because I can tell you that you cannot possibly be good at everything. I don't know anybody who is nailing it on all fronts. So for me, as I said earlier, I want to be a really, really good mum. And that means that I want to be present for my kids before school. I want to be present for them after school. And I want to give them my whole self as much as I possibly can on the weekends. We have a little rule at Bar Body that you're not allowed to email other people on weekends. So the idea is that I want people to have weekends. I'm a mom, and my family's sacred, and I want people to feel like their personal time can be sacred time. So that's why we have this rule about not emailing on weekends. I don't mind if people want to work on weekends. So we have flexible working arrangements at Bar Body, but I don't want to be drawn into the work, and I don't want the other team members who might have chosen to have their weekend with their families or friends. I don't want them to be drawn into other people's choice to work on the weekend. So that's, there's all these little things that I do to try and create balance in my life, and that is one of them. So as I was saying, my advice to you is to decide what's really important, what you want to be very good at. So it really depends on your priorities. And you might say, I want to be really, really good at my business. And that was a bit of a sacrifice that I made early on in Bar Body. My husband and I both saw that if we really focused for a few years, if we really gave it our all, we would have this business that would give us the freedom that we have now. So both of my children were in daycare from quite a young age. So both of them, I think Isla went into daycare at 5.5 months and Xavier went into daycare at 6 months. So they were quite little when they went to daycare. It wasn't full time, but part-time daycare from that early age. And then by the time Isla was 3, she was doing 5 days of daycare a week, because I knew that my son was at school and my hours were reduced already by school hours. And I knew that I needed at least those 3 days a week to focus. And by the time she went to, 5 days a week, by the time she went to school, we were all in that rhythm of 5 days a week of work. And then there's the whole school holiday thing that we have to juggle now, but that's another story. So that was a big sacrifice. So it's compromise and sacrifice is how I've managed the juggle. So for me, it was a sacrifice having my children in daycare as much as they were, because I didn't have that opportunity to be with them one-on-one. And I really did mourn and miss that. But the trade-off now has been that now that they're school-aged, the business is to a point where I can work school hours, and I can have weekends as sacred, and I can have evenings as sacred, and I can be fully present in the morning. So both my husband and I are there in the afternoons. We don't work. So we're really, really, really present, focused for the family. And we're very, very blessed to be in that situation. But the sacrifice we made was having a bit more daycare earlier on than we would have otherwise chosen. So sacrifice, compromise. It's just so important. So my choice in the the bit I want to be really good at is motherhood. The other thing I want to be really good at is work. And the reason is that it affords me this amazing lifestyle. It gives me the freedom. I work from home. I work Monday to Friday, school hours. So I don't want to not be good at that, lest that all disappear and fall away. So the things that I compromise on, I've already mentioned housework. I don't have the time for it. I'd much rather have a little bit of time for self-care and more time for my children. So I have the help in those areas. Being a really good wife, I probably say that I'm a good wife. I'm not an amazing wife. If I was an amazing wife, and if we were amazing together, we would probably be going out for dinners more and doing more things just for us, carving out time for just for us. But we're both, I guess we probably are good because we both realize that that's something that we're both giving each other the space and giving each other permission to not be buying presents and going on dates, and that stuff's all really lovely. We're very lucky. We have a very, very solid and very happy marriage, but we don't buy each other Christmas presents. We don't buy each other birthday presents. We just don't have the time, or we do buy little presents, but they're not sort of, we're usually saying, honey, this is what I want for Christmas. This is what I want for my birthday. So that tends to work really well for us. So they're the little sacrifices that we make. And I try not to sacrifice self-care too much. I wouldn't say I'm really, really good at it, but I'm pretty darn good at it. partly because of my career. This is my livelihood, bar body, and having been in the wellness industry for so long, it's just ingrained in me. I exercise probably 3 times a week, 2 or 3 times a week in a formal sort of class-based way. And then I do lots of walking, and I'll often do walking when I'm on the phone doing my business calls. So my team knows if we're going to have a meeting on the phone, I'll probably be walking because I'm multitasking, walking my dog at the same time. So, and then I meditate every morning. So that's another way that I find a little bit more time in my day for self-care. I have sacrificed, you keep hearing me say sacrifice and compromise. I have sacrificed the evenings. So I go to bed really early. So instead of watching Netflix, instead of having much time to unwind after my kids go to bed about 8 o'clock, I'm in bed at 8:30. I read for a little while, and then I'm usually asleep by 9. And that means that I can wake up around 5 o'clock. And at 5 o'clock, from 5 o'clock till 6 or 6:30, that's my time before my kids wake up, and I'm on and present for them. So in those hours, I tend to do my meditation. It's the first thing I do every day, 20 minutes of meditation. And I probably hit that 6 days out of 7. So I'm pretty solid on that, and have been for well over a year and a half. It's just so important to me. And then the next thing I do really varies, depends on the day. If I've gotten behind the day before because I've clocked off at 3:30, then I might jump on my emails and get those out of the way, because that just makes me feel good. So that's almost self-care in and of itself, believe it or not, because I'm clearing the deck so I can start the day fresh. Or I'll do a little bit of personal learning. So I'm always doing courses and sort of stuff to expand me, both from a professional capacity and from a spiritual and just knowledge in the world perspective. So I'll do a little bit of that. And then what typically happens is my beautiful little daughter will find me in my office, and she'll come and spend some time with me. And then we wake up the rest of the house, and then we get started. And from that moment, it is go, go, go until we get the kids on the bus. And then we come back and we'll quickly give the house a little tidy, and then we both sit down to work at about 8:45. So for me, like I said, it's all about deciding what's really important to you and deciding that you're going to be good at those things, and then letting go or compromising a little bit on the other things. The thing that I haven't touched on now yet, which is really, really very important, is you need to be able to forgive yourself for not doing it all and for not being perfect. So you will have heard my story in this episode, and a lot of that's probably not even possible for you. You might have a partner working full time. You might not have a partner at all. You probably don't have a husband who's fully committed to your work in the same way that you're fully committed to his work. You might be right in the trenches with really young children. That is the hardest time. It's the hardest time on you professionally, and it's the hardest time on your marriage. My mum used to say, whatever you do, don't get divorced until your kids are over 5, both over 5. And I laughed at that. And that was sort of her way of saying it's really tough when you have small children. So if you're listening to this episode and hearing me talk about having my cleaner, having my washing folder, having a husband, you need to realize I'm very, very lucky, and that's how I do it all. And so if you don't have all of those things in place, how could you possibly imagine that you'd be able to be as productive and prolific from a work perspective as I am? So forgive yourself. Be kind to yourself. You can't do it all. All you can do is choose what little sacrifices and compromises you're going to make, and decide what your idea of balance is, knowing that it is going to be very, very different from the next person. And sometimes I feel judged being so committed to my work and maybe less attentive to my children as I'd like to be. But so be it. The older I get and the more I get attuned to self-love and self-awareness, I realize that's actually not my stuff. If I don't hold on to it, it may be somebody else's stuff. If I just go look into my heart of hearts and say, am I doing the best that I can given what I have to work with? If the answer is yes, then I am a very, very happy woman. So I hope that this episode has been useful. I know I jumped around a little bit. I hope that you can walk away from this with the big takeouts being there's no such thing as having it all, or if you are, having it all really is what you've decided is worthwhile to sacrifice and compromise to get to what your picture or your vision of having it all is. So I would say I am having it all, but I'm under no illusions about how I got here and how blessed I am and lucky I am to have the help that I do have. And the other part that I want you to take away is that you need to be kind to yourself. Nobody can do all of the things. Nobody can juggle all of the things perfectly. Be kind to yourself. Recognize that your situation is completely and totally unique, and just be so loving and so accepting for where you're at, and know that balance, what constitutes balance today will be very, very different. Your situation may be very different in a year's time, in 6 months' time, and that it's okay to make short-term sacrifices. So overwhelmingly, though, just be kind to yourself. I hope that this episode has been helpful. I'd love you to leave a review. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'd love to start a dialogue. Tell me if this episode resonated with you. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Well, that's it for today's episode. If you want more from me, visit my website, emmasebold.com, for show notes and all sorts of goodies. Or follow me on Instagram at @emmasebold_. Thanks again for listening, and I hope I can help you live your richest, most magical, most successful, and aligned life. Until next time.